Desmond from South Florida. Welcome to the program, Desmond.
Hi.
How you doing?
Hey, yeah. I phoned in to debate Reaganomics with you.
Great.
Reaganomics.
Reaganomics, yes.
Hello?
Okay. What do you want to?
Yeah.
What's?
Well,
Why don't you start by?
Because
why don't you understand? Why don't you
I'm
start?
sorry?
Why don't you start by telling us what is Reaganomics?
Supply side economics. It means you try to free up the private sector. You try to lower the cost of doing business.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So.
And that should be good for the economy.
Okay. And why don't we see, for instance, at a time where you have corporations in this country sitting on literally trillions of dollars of cash reserves, making record profits, why is that not helping the economy and helping our job losses?
Well, I think during the 80s, we had very strong economic growth. I was looking at these numbers from the U.S. Census Bureau, and middle-class incomes went up 22% during the Reagan years. So, we have a problem with offshoring now, but I think both
Do you think that there are more or less?
That.
Do you think there are more or less regulations than there were under Reagan?
More or less what?
Well, okay, you're saying it happened under Reagan, and you are aware that tax rates were higher under Reagan, right?
He made overall tax rates lower, even though he raised
not
some
lower
taxes.
Than they are today.
Well, I know he cut income tax. He made it index.
He did, but they were higher.
Which was very important.
They were higher tax rates than they are today.
Well, different types of taxes affect the economy differently. So if you
cut
capital gains, like
capital
Reagan
gains
did,
taxes were higher than they are today.
If you cut capital gains tax in particular, it spurs investment.
Desmond, that's an interesting theory, but the fact of the matter is capital gains taxes were
Clinton
higher
did it
under
too.
Reagan.
Clinton cut capital gains tax too in the early 90s. Even he agreed that capital gains tax cut is good for investment.
Capital gains taxes are lower than they were under Reagan. Today they are lower than they were under Reagan.
No, I'm not disagreeing on that. I'm not disagreeing.
So
I'm
what's
just saying
your point?
Cutting them helped the economy.
Well, then how come it's not helping the economy now?
Well, we had a housing bubble crash, and the housing bubble, it was a combination of many different things.
Well, one of the things was that there was deregulation on those supply siders.
There was a lot of intervention in the housing market on the part of government.
Really?
They were pushing home ownership. And,
You're saying
you had these Democrats.
Do you know
in
what
Congress
percentage?
Going to the,
what percentage of? And you're talking about the CRAs, right?
No, there was many different legislation, many different.
Do you want to give me a name of one?
Okay. There was the Community Redevelopment Financial Institutions Fund, which was a slush fund for the banks.
Right.
It
the
pumped
CRA.
money directly into the banks so they could subprime loan.
Yes, the CRAs. That's what I was saying. The Community Reinvestment Act.
No. That's not the Community Reinvestment Act. This came from the Regal Act of '94. The Community Reinvestment Act was from the late '70s. The Regal Act of '94 or '93, I think it was the early '90s, had the Redevelopment Financial Institutions Fund, which was a slush fund for the banks.
How many of those banks that were involved in this mortgage crisis were subject to that law? Do you know?
Under the Community Reinvestment Act.
Yes. Do you know how many?
Well, I'm not arguing that it was that alone. I'm saying it was many different pieces of legislation that helped put the infrastructure in place. And besides the Institutions Fund, which I told you, there was Fannie and Freddie was forced to securitize 45% of all subprime loans in the country by Andrew Cuomo in HUD under Clinton.
And the
so
point,
many different things that inflated the housing market.
Why didn't the housing market inflate until 2005 or 2004, 2003? That was 12, 13 years after.
It was a humongous bubble, and we were all there. We remember how great the market was for so long. It was artificially inflated for a very long time. We were all there.
All right. Well, your arguments
bubbles don't get that bad.
your arguments.
Hold on, bubbles don't get that bad in a naturally free market. You don't get bubbles that big. There are some booms and busts, but nothing as big as the housing bubble. The housing bubble was artificial.
Tulips? You want to talk about tulips?
What?
Do you know what tulips are?
Tulips, like flowers? I'm sorry?
Yeah. I mean, you're stating these things. What I suggest you do is Google tulips and the bubble that existed in tulips under a free market 300-400 years ago. I mean, look.
Listen. The 1700s. Well, that was like mercantilism and stuff. That wasn't a modern economy.
Well, I mean, you're saying that government intervention led to this bubble, right? Now, you're not.
No. I'm not against all regulation, okay? And I'm not saying that some regulation wouldn't
But you're not
have helped.
providing any evidence for your thesis that somehow, if we give the supply siders,
I just gave you specific legislation. I told you community redevelopment.
And how many? And I'm responding to that. How many of those banks that were involved in the financial crisis were subject to that law? That had to. You're saying they pushed out home ownership. How many?
You're referring
Do
to
you
the
know?
CRA, which was in the 70s. I'm talking about the Regal Act.
Do you know how many banks were subject to the Regal Act? What percentage of those banks that gave out those subprime loans?
I know it created a slush fund for the banks, and I know it pumped money into the banks to free them up for more subprime lending. That is what I know.
Well, wait a second. I thought the whole idea was the supply side.
Well, no, I don't believe in that. I don't want government pumping money into banks. I want the banks to be on their own, and if they crash, let them crash. If they take too risky bets,
all right, but that's not necessarily Reaganomics. I mean, you're telling me that this is about supply side.
I'm telling you how I feel. I identify most closely of any president with Reagan's economic policies, even if I don't agree with everything he did. I think we had a strong economy in the 80s.
Okay. So the point is that you're saying now, obviously you don't agree with the savings and loan bailout, whatnot. Okay, fine. So exactly what is it that you're arguing here? That we should give tax breaks to wealthy people? I mean, we have lower tax rates.
Reaganomics. That
you keep saying Reaganomics, but then you disavow the things that Reagan did. I got news for you. The tax rates are lower now than they were then.
No, but I'm saying it helped at the time. What he did helped the economy.
So you're just saying the act of cutting taxes, not where they are, is what helps the economy.
I'm saying that the tax rates were much better after Reagan than before Reagan, which helped the economy.
Okay, that's great. That's a wonderful story. But the bottom line is taxes are lower now. When Bush lowered those taxes, did it help the economy?
22% growth in income in the middle class under the 80s.
Why are you not addressing
the middle class?
Is the phone not working?
Richer.
Is the phone not working, Desmond? How do you explain if lower taxes stimulate an economy? How do you explain the fact that that when Bush lowered the tax rates, it did not stimulate that type of growth? How do you deal with the fact that we have lower taxes now than we did during Reagan, and it's not helping?
Well, Bush continued these policies of the money pumping into the banks, and he helped inflate the housing bubble. I think Bush and Clinton are both responsible for what crashed the economy. But right after the Bush tax
cuts, are you aware what the economy did in the 90s, Desmond?
Am I aware about of the economy in the 90s?
Yes. Were growth rates in the 90s higher than they were during the 80s?
Well, we had a technology boom as well.
It's a simple question.
The internet, which created lots of new
Yes,
markets.
I am aware of that. It's a simple question. Were growth rates in the 90s higher than they were in the 80s?
Yeah, I think Reaganomics set off two decades of strong growth.
Which, fortunately, for your argument, was not derailed when Clinton raised tax rates.
I told you he cut capital gains tax early in his presidency, which helped stimulate the economy. Even if he raised income tax rates, he cut capital gains tax.
Okay, so why didn't it help when Bush cut his capital gains rates?
Bush cut capital gains tax in 2003. There was two sets of Bush tax cuts. The 2003 cut was more supply side. It had the capital gains tax cut.
Why didn't that help?
We had strong economic growth in the mid-2000s until the housing bubble crashed.
But wait, so when Clinton's growth was just a function of the internet bubble, but the real estate bubble, which drove
his capital gains tax cut helped as well when Clinton cut taxes.
I actually think that the capital gains, the whole capital gains tax regime, has been incredibly problematic for this country and the economy because of what it has misaligned incentives for CEOs. But you haven't established that you haven't been able in any way to draw a line between lowering taxes and growth. You haven't been able to draw that line whatsoever.
I haven't made a line what? I'm sorry, my cell phone isn't perfect.
Yes, apparently between cutting taxes and growth. You haven't been able to draw a line between that at all.
Well,
we had the greatest economic expansion in this country with much higher tax rates.
The economy. You had the Reagan capital gains tax cut, which helped the economy because you don't want to disincentivize people from investing. And when the capital gains tax is too high, people don't want to invest.
Well, how is it that we experienced such amazing growth during the 60s? During the 50s.
Well, Kennedy cut taxes and revenue.
But they were higher. So you're just saying the act of cutting taxes, except for when Clinton raised taxes, is what brings you growth.
Clinton cut and raised taxes. He cut capital gains while raising income. Okay, so it's many different taxes that affect the economy differently. Income tax rates.
So you're saying just cutting capital gains taxes is what gives you growth, not income taxes.
No, I think we need a comprehensive approach. I think that there's tax cuts we can look at. I think we should incentivize people to start insourcing into this country instead of outsourcing.
So you would get rid of the law that allows corporations to offshore their profits. That American corporations need to bring their money back the year they make it and pay taxes on it. Would you agree with that?
I want to incentivize the system to bring jobs back. So that might mean we can agree on certain measures. We might disagree on certain measures, but we agree that there's a problem that we haven't had a net gain of jobs under things like NAFTA. With NAFTA,
right? I agree with that.
Net jobs, and you guys,
I agree
and
with
you guys still worship Bill Clinton.
I
you
don't.
guys were like getting all orgasmic.
No, you don't listen to this program, Desmond. Just take it easy.
Clinton.
Put a plug in it because you don't listen to this program. Because I never espouse what you're talking about in terms of Bill Clinton. But beyond that, if we want to talk about, so you're open to some tax reform, you have a problem with. We got to turn off that heat. You're open to some tax reform, but you really want to have capital gains down. Now, you're aware, of course, that under Reagan's expansion of economic growth, that government hired far more people than we've hired. In fact, we're at a net 600,000 loss of government workers over the past 4 years, whereas under Reagan's expansion, there was a gain of almost a half a million government workers.
Well, there were public sector job gains and there were private
right,
sector
because he
job
grew
gains.
the deficit. And he didn't grow the deficit because we had a recession. He spent more.
I know.
And he did not spend more. He did not spend more.
I know you guys love the Reagan
listen,
the debt line.
Listen.
But the problem with it is.
The bottom line is he grew the deficits because he primed the pump, and he didn't do it through cutting taxes on people because our taxes are at a lower rate than they were then. He did it by government spending. That's the reality.
I'm sorry, but we cut government spending in the 90s. We had a budget surplus and the economy was booming, so your story doesn't really add up. That it could have been just Yeah, there could have been expansion of public sector jobs.
There was.
But I am arguing that the
Significant
1981
expansion.
tax reform really spurred growth. And you're not discussing how it was indexed for inflation. Before, it wasn't indexed for inflation. So over time, as the Federal Reserve printed money, your taxes would go up as the Federal Reserve made your money more worthless. So that was essential.
Okay, I'm not sure what you're getting at here, but
No. If you index it for inflation, that means that when the money is inflated over time, you're not going to be taxed more for the inflation.
if you index the marginal tax rates.
I'm not a PhD postgraduate expert. I don't know all the big words, but I do have a pretty good memory.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, I'm not sure what it is exactly that you're arguing for here. I mean, you're arguing for what? What do you think that we should do? Okay, instead of saying word Reaganomics, instead of saying Desmond's version of what Reaganomics is, what do you say that we should be doing right now?
What should we do right now? Well, I don't think when Obama is raising taxes on small businesses that make over $250,000 a year, I don't think that's helping.
Well, you just said before that income taxes aren't the issue. The issue is the amount of small businesses.
The problem is that businesses are taxed as individuals, and many of them operate on very tiny profit margins. So little things like this, even though you might say, oh, it's just 3 or 4%. That makes a huge difference to, a local,
podcaster, say,
plumbing company,
like a local podcaster. I mean, I'm going through it.
Sorry.
I mean, the person you're describing is me. And I can tell you, I am not making hiring. I am not making hiring. I got news for you. I got news for you, Desmond. I'm not making any hiring decisions based upon the fact that I may have to pay $3 or $4 grand more a year in taxes.
Well, your business might not be suffering, but there's other businesses that are suffering, particular industries that are absolutely getting killed. And for me, how about we discuss insourcing? Why doesn't Obama use the word insourcing? Say, this is how I'm going to bring jobs here. Instead, he just attacks people and say, oh, you make too much money.
Well, what you're talking about is you just don't like his rhetoric. And that's fine. I mean, if you're talking about, protectionism of some sort, I got no problem. But tell me what you would do.
One thing that
what is it that you would do?
And I can't find one good thing.
Well, I'm really sorry about that. But tell me, and I don't really care about what you think about Obama, but I'm just curious, what is it that you would do at this point? What tax rates would you change?
You asked me, so, I'm so sorry. What would I do at this point? Okay, I definitely cut corporate tax rates because we have the highest in the world. Even Japan cut theirs.
You're aware that
used to be the highest.
You're aware that our effective tax rates are lower than most industrialized countries.
What do you mean effective tax rate? I specifically mean the corporate tax rate.
Yes, but I'm telling you that the tax rate can be 35%, but the taxes that corporations actually pay is significantly lower. That's the effective tax rate.
Specifically the corporate tax rate.
Yes, listen to what I'm saying.
Well,
there's two ways of measuring
Obama
taxes.
Admit during the debate that we need a lower corporate tax rates. I even heard him admit that.
Look, I mean, if we get a higher effective tax rate at a lower marginal tax rate, I got no problem with that. But effective tax rate is the actual taxes being paid by corporations.
It's obviously not just corporate tax rates. I think we have a very abusive, vicious EPA as well that's going very viciously after the coal industry. I think we have an EPA that's basically regulating without oversight of Congress. They're targeting certain industries.
What do you think their agenda is?
My industry isn't being affected.
Desmond, what do you think their agenda is? I mean, aside from coal just getting priced out of the market, what do you think the EPA's agenda is?
What is its job?
What's its agenda? I mean, they're being vicious. Why do you think they're doing that?
I think they want to have a different economy. They want to rebuild the economy in their image. They like certain types of energy and not others. And for me, my perspective is jobs are jobs. Okay, and when we have such a weak economy, who pays
for the asthma? Who pays for the mercury and lead poisoning?
Well, you always say the first regulations I want to go to are to make the air dirty, and both of us know that's not true.
What? You don't think
just because
coal
I'm
power? Wait a second. Because this could be actually a very important point for us to get out. You don't think that coal plants or that coal poisons the air?
Yeah, yes, coal is not the cleanest form of energy.
Well, no.
For me,
But just
it's like,
just
people are
answer that
struggling
question
to
because
pay the bills.
wait, listen. But the point is, do you think that coal puts poison into the air
Do I think it's harmful to the air?
and to people?
I think we need to do basically a cost-benefit analysis. We need to say, okay, is how it is affecting our energy prices worth whatever cost we would incur? And instead we're saying, oh, no, this is an evil industry. We need to demonize them. And for me, okay, if my energy
What if
bills
the cost-benefit analysis has already been made? What if the cost-benefit analysis in terms of what it does? What if the cost-benefit analysis has already been made? Will you accept the idea that perhaps mercury poisoning is a problem, that greenhouse emissions are a problem, that it is a cost?
I'm not a global warming denier, but I do think there's been alarmism. I think there are people who see this as an opportunity to expand government and to put more infrastructure in place to more greatly regulate the economy. So as for global warming, do I think if we have
what about fracking, for instance? I mean, we're seeing fracking run amok. We're supposedly involved.
How about this? Why doesn't China put in a carbon tax and then we'll put in a carbon tax? Because they're emitting more carbon than us, but it's always, the U.S. needs to put a carbon tax while they get to explode and grow.
You know what? My 7-year-old daughter says the same thing about her friends at school. But you know what? We don't have control over China.
No, I agree. But since they're emitting more carbon, why are we going to take it in the nuts?
Well, because we're basically responsible for our own house. We can't control China.
But if it's going to make no
let me tell you what I tell my daughter. I don't care what Haley is doing. Okay, I'm not her parent. She doesn't live in our family. In our family, this is what we do. I mean, to say that because China's doing it, we should not take these steps is both contradicting your argument about the validity of taking those steps and also being silly.
No, I don't think it's silly because if we're going to say, what is the impact in the long run? Okay, versus the cost to our economy, especially if no other countries are going to put this in place, and we're watching China just have this explosive growth, just these 21st
well, they're having explosive growth because they're having explosive growth, frankly, because they're a developing country. I mean, and then aside from the fact that they actually spend on infrastructure.
Why isn't Japan and South Korea had growth like this? China in particular is really growing because their economy had a lot of potential.
Japan developed about 40 years ago, I think.
In the 70s, they
actually
opened
now
up the
70.
economy.
All right, well, listen, Desmond, it's an interesting conversation. Certainly call back in the future. I gotta let you go now because I don't want. We got to get to other things.
You haven't convinced me Reagan was bad for the economy. Sorry.
I know. I had a feeling that wouldn't happen, but definitely call back. Maybe we can do it next time.